The diplomatic station called Nexus Prime floated in the empty space between three star systems. It was massive. 100,000 beings lived and worked inside its metal walls. Representatives from 37 different species came here to talk, to argue, and to make deals that shaped the future of the galaxy. Today, a new species had arrived. Park Tae-ho stood at the viewing window of his small quarters and watched the stars. He was a thin man with a gentle face. His hair was neatly combed. His suit was simple but clean, round glasses sat on his nose, and when he smiled, which was often, he looked like a teacher or a librarian. Not a diplomat, certainly not a threat. This was exactly what he wanted people to think. A knock came at his door. Lieutenant Dong-soo entered without waiting for an answer. He was younger than Tae-ho, with broader shoulders and a scar running down his left cheek. They had known each other for 15 years. The assembly session starts in 1 hour, Dong-soo said. Are you ready? Tae-ho adjusted his glasses. I am always ready. Dong-soo looked at him for a long moment. They both knew what those words really meant, but neither of them spoke about the past. Not anymore. The Grand Assembly Hall was designed to make newcomers feel small. The ceiling rose so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Floating platforms held representatives from dozens of species, each one stranger than the last. Some had scales, some had fur, some had no bodies at all, existing only as patterns of light, and all of them were looking at the human. Tae-ho walked to the center platform with small, careful steps. He kept his head slightly bowed. His hands were folded in front of him like a servant waiting for orders. Every movement he made said the same thing. I am not important. I am not dangerous. Please do not notice me. The Kelathi delegation sat on the highest platform. They were reptiles. Cold-blooded and proud. Their scales were dark green, almost black, and their eyes were yellow with vertical slits. The Kelathi Empire controlled 47 star systems and had destroyed 3 species in the last 100 years alone. High Arbiter Vorn, their leader, leaned forward to get a better look at the human. Vorn was old even by Kelathi standards. His scales had faded to gray, and golden rings pierced his eye ridges as marks of his many victories. He had ruled his empire for 60 years and had never once shown mercy to the weak. So, Vorn said, and his voice echoed through the hall, this is what humanity sends to represent them. A clerk. Laughter rippled through the assembly. Not from everyone, but from enough. The Kelathi, the broodmasters of Yith, the collective of Torn, all of them looked at Tae-ho like he was an insect that had wandered into their home. Tae-ho bowed even deeper. High Arbiter Vorn, it is my great honor to stand before this assembly. Humanity is young and small. We have much to learn from the elder species. More laughter. Vorn's mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile on a creature with lips. At least it knows its place, Vorn said. Perhaps humans are trainable after all. Tae-ho said nothing. He simply smiled and nodded as if Vorn had paid him a compliment. On a platform near the middle of the hall, Ambassador Lyris watched the exchange with great interest. Lyris belonged to the Sindari, a neutral species that traded with everyone and allied with no one. She was tall and thin, with silver skin and large dark eyes that missed nothing. Something about the human bothered her. She had studied humanity before this meeting. Their history files were public, at least the parts they allowed others to see. And what she had found disturbed her. Humans had spent most of their existence killing each other. War after war after war. They had developed weapons that could poison their entire planet. They had actually used some of them, and yet somehow, they had survived. Not just survived, but united and reached the stars. The galaxy saw a small, soft species with no claws and no armor. Lyris saw something else. She saw survivors. And survivors were always more dangerous than they appeared. The session continued for 3 more hours. Tae-ho spoke when called upon. He was polite. He was humble. He agreed to trade terms that were clearly unfair to humanity. He thanked the assembly for their wisdom and their patience. By the end, most of the delegates had forgotten he was there at all. Just another minor species begging for scraps at the table of the powerful. But Lyris kept watching. And once, just once, she saw something that made her blood run cold. It happened when Vorn made another joke at humanity's expense. Something about humans being useful as pets. The assembly laughed, and Tejo laughed with them, bobbing his head in that foolish way of his. But for just 1 second, his eyes changed. The smile stayed on his face. His body remained relaxed, but his eyes went completely empty, like someone had turned off a light behind them. There was no anger there, no fear, no emotion at all, just cold, dark nothing. Then the moment passed. The warmth returned to his gaze. The bumbling diplomat was back. Lyris felt her heart's beating faster. She had seen eyes like that before. Once, long ago, when a Kalathi assassin had tried to kill her father, the assassin had worn that same empty look right before he struck. Those were the eyes of someone who had killed before, many times, and who could kill again without feeling anything at all. After the session ended, Vorn summoned Commander Thal to his private chambers. Thal was the greatest warrior in the Kalathi Empire. He stood 7 feet tall, and his claws had been enhanced with metal tips that could cut through ship armor. He had never lost a fight. He had never shown mercy. The human, Vorn said. I want him taken. Thal tilted his head. Taken? Captured. Questioned. Broken. Vorn's yellow eyes gleamed. Humanity thinks they can join our assembly as equals. They need to learn their place. Make an example of their diplomat. Show the galaxy what happens to species that reach above their station. Thal smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. It will be my pleasure. High Arbiter. Do not kill him, Vorn added. Not immediately. I want him to suffer first. I want him to beg, and I want the recording sent to Earth so they understand the cost of their arrogance. Understood. Tal left to gather his team. 6 of his best warriors. All of them killers. All of them hungry for blood. None of them knew what they were walking into. And somewhere in the station, Park Tae-ho sat alone in his quarters, staring at the stars. His glasses sat on the table beside him. His eyes were empty again. He knew they would come. He had been waiting for this moment since he first stepped onto the station. The galaxy thought humanity was weak. They thought humans were prey. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The maintenance corridors of Nexus Prime were dark and empty. Most species avoided them. The lighting was poor. The air recyclers hummed too loudly. And the walls were bare metal without the comfortable decorations found elsewhere on the station. Park Tae-ho walked through these corridors alone. He had told Captain Yuna that he needed time to think. He had told Lieutenant Dong-soo that he was going to explore the station. Both of them had offered to come with him. He had politely refused. Now he walked with his hands in his pockets, his footsteps echoing off the metal floor. To anyone watching, he looked like a lost tourist who had taken a wrong turn. But Tae-ho was not lost. He knew exactly where he was, and he knew exactly who was waiting for him. Commander Thal stepped out of the shadows ahead. His scales were so dark they seemed to absorb the weak light. His metal-tipped claws caught the glow of a distant lamp and gleamed like knives. Human, Thal said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. You should not have come to this place. 5 more Kalathi warriors emerged from side passages. They moved like predators, surrounding Tae-ho in a loose circle. Each one carried a plasma blade, the kind of weapon that could cut through steel like paper. Each one had killed before. Tae-ho stopped walking. He looked around at the warriors, his expression confused and frightened. I am sorry, he said, his voice shaking. I think I am lost. Can you help me find my way back to the main corridor? Thal laughed. The other warriors joined him. The sound bounced off the metal walls like thunder. You are not lost, human. You are exactly where we want you. Thal stepped closer. High Arbiter Vorn sends his regards. He wants your people to understand something. Humans do not belong in the Galactic Assembly. Humans are prey, and prey should know their place. Tae-ho's face showed fear. His hands trembled. He took a step backward, bumping into one of the warriors behind him. Please, he said. I am just a diplomat. I do not want any trouble. If I have offended the High Arbiter, I apologize. I will do anything he asks. Yes, Thal said. You will. You will scream. You will beg. And then, when we are finished, You will tell your people what happens to those who challenge the Kalathi Empire." The warriors tightened their circle. Their plasma blades hummed with deadly energy. Thal raised his clawed hand, ready to give the signal to attack. And then Park Tae-ho did something unexpected. He stopped shaking. His breathing became slow and even. The fear drained from his face like water running off stone. He reached up and removed his glasses, folding them carefully and placing them in his jacket pocket. When he looked up again, his eyes were completely different. Empty. Cold. Like looking into the void between stars. "You have 3 seconds to leave," Tae-ho said. His voice had changed too. It was flat now, mechanical, without any emotion at all. The warriors looked at each other in confusion. Then Thal laughed again, louder than before. 3 seconds. "Little human. Do you understand what is happening? There are 6 of us, and 1 of you. We are warriors. You are nothing." 2 seconds, Tae-ho said. One of the warriors grew impatient. He lunged forward. His plasma blade aimed at Tae-ho's throat. He never reached his target. Tae-ho moved. Not like a human should move, not like anything should move. He flowed around the blade like water around a rock. His hand caught the warrior's wrist. There was a sharp crack, and the warrior screamed as his arm bent in a direction arms were not meant to bend. Tae-ho took the plasma blade from the warrior's broken hand. Before the others could react, he drove it through the warrior's chest. 1 second had passed. The second warrior attacked from behind. Tae-ho spun, ducking under the wild swing. He grabbed the warrior's head with both hands and twisted. The crack of breaking bones echoed through the corridor. 2 warriors dead. 3 seconds had not yet passed. Thal roared and charged. His metal claws slashed through the air like lightning. Tae-ho bent backward. The claws passing so close they cut a line through his suit jacket. He came back up with the plasma blade extended. Thal pulled back just in time, the blade missing his throat by less than an inch. The remaining 3 warriors attacked together. They were elite soldiers, trained since birth to kill. They moved as a unit, covering each other, leaving no openings. It did not matter. Tae-ho was not fighting like a soldier. He was not fighting like anything the Kalathi had ever seen. He was fighting like something old. Something that had learned to survive in a world where everything wanted it dead. He used the corridor itself as a weapon. He pushed off walls. He ducked through gaps too small for the larger Kalathi to follow. He never blocked when he could dodge. He never fought fair when he could fight dirty. 11 seconds after the first attack, 5 Kalathi warriors lay dead on the floor. Only Thal remained. The great commander stared at the human with something new in his yellow eyes. Fear. True fear. For the first time in his long life, Thal understood what it felt like to be prey. Tae-ho moved so fast that Thal could not track him. One moment he was 3 meters away. The next, he was behind Thal, slamming the commander's face into the metal wall. Thal's claws scraped uselessly against the floor as Tae-ho pinned him in place. "Tell your master," Tae-ho whispered into Thal's ear, "that Earth sends its regards." He pressed the plasma blade against Thal's throat, just hard enough to burn the scales. "If the Kalathi attack another human, I will come back. And next time, I will not leave anyone alive to carry a message. Do you understand?" Thal tried to speak, but only a weak sound came out. "Do you understand?" Tae-ho asked again. "Yes," Thal managed to say. "Yes, I understand." Tae-ho released him. Thal fell to the ground, gasping for breath. When he looked up, the human was already walking away. Tae-ho reached into his pocket, retrieved his glasses, and put them back on. He smoothed his suit jacket, frowning at the cut Thal's claws had made in the fabric. By the time station security arrived, responding to the sounds of combat, Tae-ho was calmly filing a complaint about unprovoked harassment. Later that night, Lieutenant Dong-soo found Tae-ho in his quarters. The diplomat was standing at the small sink, washing blood from his hands. The water running down the drain was dark red. Dong-soo watched in silence for a long moment. "How many people know?" he finally asked. Tae-ho did not look up. "About what happened tonight? The Kalathi will try to hide it. They cannot admit that one human killed 5 of their elite warriors. That is not what I meant." Tae-ho turned off the water. He dried his hands on a clean towel, taking his time. When he finally looked at Dongsu, his eyes were warm again, human again. "Now?" he said quietly. Somewhere across the station, Commander Thal knelt before High Arbiter Vorn and told him what had happened. He did not tell the whole truth. He could not. The shame was too great, but he told enough. And for the first time in 60 years, Vorn felt something cold settle in his ancient heart. He had made a terrible mistake. The footage spread through Nexus Prime like fire through dry grass. Someone had leaked it. The station's security cameras had recorded everything that happened in the maintenance corridor, and now every species in the assembly was watching it. They watched the human diplomat remove his glasses. They watched his eyes go empty. They watched him move through 6 elite Kelathi warriors like wind through leaves. They watched him pin Commander Thal, the greatest warrior of the Kelathi Empire, against a wall like a child holding down a bug. They watched, and they felt something they had not expected to feel: fear. In the common areas of the station, conversations stopped when humans walked by. Species that had laughed at humanity the day before now stepped aside to let them pass. Merchants who had offered unfair prices suddenly became very generous. Diplomats who had ignored Taeho's requests now answered his messages within minutes. The galaxy had learned something new about humans, and the lesson had shaken them to their core. High Arbiter Vorn sat alone in his private chambers, watching the footage for the 20th time. His old yellow eyes tracked every movement the human made. He slowed the recording, studying each strike, each dodge, each moment where death passed from one body to the next. This was not the fighting style of any known species. It was not elegant, like the blade dances of the Sindari. It was not powerful like the crushing attacks of the Brood. It was something else entirely. It was practical, efficient, designed for only one purpose: to end threats as quickly as possible. This was the fighting style of a species that had spent its entire existence at war. Vorn felt his pride burning inside him like acid. He had been humiliated. His warriors had been killed like animals by a creature that everyone in the galaxy had considered prey. If he did nothing, the Kelathi Empire would become a joke. Other species would see weakness and begin to circle like predators around a wounded animal. He could not let that happen. "Summon the assembly," Vorn commanded. "I will demand a formal challenge." The Grand Assembly Hall was packed with more observers than ever before. Every species wanted to see what would happen next. The tension in the air was thick enough to taste. Vorn stood on his platform, his gray scales gleaming under the lights. His voice rolled through the hall like thunder. "I call upon the ancient laws of honor combat. The human diplomat has killed citizens of the Kelathi Empire. I demand satisfaction. I demand a formal duel." Whispers spread through the crowd. Honor combat was an old tradition, rarely used in modern times. It was simple. 2 champions would fight until one could no longer continue. The winner's side would be declared right. The loser's side would suffer the consequences. Taeho stood on his small platform, looking as harmless as ever. His glasses were back on his nose. His hands were folded politely in front of him. "High Arbiter," he said, his voice calm and reasonable. "Your warriors attacked me without warning. I defended myself. Surely the assembly can see that I am the victim here." "You killed 5 soldiers," Vorn roared. "They were trying to kill me," Taeho replied. "Were you expecting me to simply allow it?" More whispers. A few species actually laughed, though quietly. Vorn's claws dug into the railing of his platform. "If you refuse the challenge, humanity will be branded as cowards. You will be expelled from the assembly. Your species will be declared unworthy of galactic civilization." The hall fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. If Taeho refused, humanity would lose everything. All their work to join the galactic community would be destroyed. Taeho was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled that gentle, foolish smile of his. "I accept the challenge," he said. "I will fight for humanity's honor." Captain Yuna was waiting for Taeho when he returned to the horizon's edge. Her face was tight with anger and worry. "Are you insane?" she demanded. "You just agreed to fight in formal combat. Do you understand what that means? They will send their best warrior. Probably Thal himself. He will have weapons, armor, You will have nothing. I will have what I have always had, Taeho said quietly. Myself. That is not enough. You are a diplomat, not a soldier. Taeho looked at her. His eyes were still warm, still human. But something lurked behind them. Something old and dangerous. Captain Yuna, he said. With respect. You do not know what I am. Dong-su entered the room, his face pale. They have announced the terms. The duel will take place in the Grand Arena tomorrow. Tal has chosen a plasma lance as his weapon. You are allowed to choose any weapon you want. Yuna grabbed Taeho's arm. Choose something powerful. A rifle. A cannon. Anything. Taeho gently removed her hand. I will choose what I choose. Please trust me, Captain. Why? Why should I trust you? I have known you for 6 months. I thought you were a peaceful man. A diplomat. And now I find out you can kill trained warriors with your bare hands. Who are you? Taeho. What are you? Taeho did not answer for a long time. He walked to the window and looked out at the stars. When he finally spoke, his voice was very soft. 20 years ago, there was a unit in Earth's military called the Ghost Division. They took children and trained them to be weapons. Not soldiers. Weapons. They taught us to fight, to kill, to survive anything. They broke us down and rebuilt us into something that barely counted as human anymore. Yuna felt her blood go cold. She had heard rumors of such programs. Everyone had. But she had never met anyone who admitted to being part of one. The Ghost Division was dissolved after the Unification Wars, Taeho continued. The survivors were given new identities, new lives. Some became farmers. Some became teachers. Some became diplomats. He turned to face her. His smile was sad now. I have spent 15 years trying to be something other than a weapon. I learned to smile. I learned to bow. I learned to make my enemies think I was harmless. But you cannot change what you are. You can only control it. And now someone has forced me to remember what I really am. Taeho straightened his glasses. Tomorrow, I will show the galaxy that humanity is not prey. We never were. We are survivors, and we protect our own. Later that night, Ambassador Lyris requested a private meeting with Taeho. He agreed, and they met in one of the station's observation rooms. Surrounded by the silent beauty of the stars. I researched your world, Lyris said. Her silver face was troubled. Your history is soaked in blood, war after war, suffering after suffering. Yet you hide it so well. We do not hide it, Taeho replied. We simply learned to put it in a box. We only open it when we must. And now, Taeho's smile faded. For just a moment, Lyris saw something terrible behind his eyes. Something vast and cold and patient. Someone opened my box, he said. Now they must live with what comes out. Lyris felt a shiver run through her body. She had seen many dangerous beings in her long life. Warriors, assassins, monsters of every kind. But she had never been more frightened than she was at this moment. Standing in a quiet room with a smiling human diplomat. Tomorrow, the galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. Lyris suspected that many would wish they had never learned it at all. The Grand Arena of Nexus Prime was the largest structure on the station. It could hold 50,000 spectators. And today, every seat was filled. Beings of every shape and size crowded together, their eyes fixed on the empty fighting floor below. Billions more watched through screens across the galaxy. This was the most viewed event in 100 years. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when the Kalathi Empire crushed the upstart humans. High Arbiter Vorn sat in the place of honor, his gray scales polished until they gleamed. He had dressed in his ceremonial armor, golden and ancient. Around him sat the other high leaders of the Kalathi, all of them confident that today would restore their empire's honor. On the opposite side of the arena, Captain Yuna sat with Lieutenant Dong-su. Her hands were clenched so tight that her knuckles had gone white. Dong-su sat very still, his face showing nothing at all. A great horn sounded, and the crowd fell silent. Commander Thal entered the arena first. He wore full battle armor, black plates covering his body from neck to tail. In his clawed hands, He carried a plasma lance, a weapon designed to kill warships. Blue energy crackled along its length, casting strange shadows on the walls. He was 7 feet of muscle and scale, and barely controlled rage. The crowd roared with approval. Thal raised his lance, and the roar grew louder. Then Park Tae-ho entered. He wore his suit, the same simple gray suit he had worn to every assembly meeting. His glasses sat on his nose. His hands were empty. He walked with that same gentle, shuffling walk that had made the galaxy laugh at him. In his right hand, he carried a single metal rod. It was the kind of weapon that Kelathi children used for training. It was not even sharp. The crowd fell silent again. This time, the silence was confused. Was this a joke? Had the human lost his mind? Vorn leaned forward, his yellow eyes narrowing. Beside him, one of his advisors whispered, "He means to die with dignity. At least." Vorn did not respond. Something about this bothered him. Something felt wrong. The two fighters walked to the center of the arena and faced each other. A referee, a neutral being made of pure light, floated between them. "The rules are simple," the referee announced. "Fight until one cannot continue. Kill or disable your opponent. There are no restrictions on methods. Begin on my signal." Thal bared his teeth. "You should have run, human. You should have hidden. Now I will tear you apart in front of the entire galaxy." Tae-ho removed his glasses. He folded them carefully and placed them in his pocket. When he looked up, his eyes were empty again. Cold. Dead. "You talk too much," he said. The signal sounded. Thal charged. He was fast for his size, crossing the distance between them in 3 massive strides. The plasma lance swept down, in a deadly arc that would have cut Tae-ho in half, but Tae-ho was not there. He had moved, not backward, forward. He slipped inside Thal's reach, so close that the lance passed harmlessly behind him. His metal rod struck Thal's elbow, right at the joint where the armor was weakest. Thal roared in pain. His arm went numb. The lance wobbled in his grip. The crowd gasped. Thal recovered quickly. He swung the lance in a wide circle, forcing Tae-ho to jump back. Then he thrust forward, the plasma tip screaming through the air. Tae-ho twisted. The lance cut through his jacket, missing his body by less than a finger's width. He brought his rod down on Thal's wrist. Crack. The lance fell from Thal's broken grip. Thal screamed. He lashed out with his free hand, metal claws slashing toward Tae-ho's face. The claws caught Tae-ho's shoulder, tearing through cloth and flesh. Blood splattered on the arena floor, but Tae-ho did not stop. He did not even slow down. He stepped into the attack, letting the claws cut deeper into his shoulder. Then his rod came up, striking Thal under the chin. The big Kalathi's head snapped back. His eyes went unfocused. Tae-ho hit him again, and again, and again. Each blow was precise. Each blow found a weak point in the armor, a gap in the defense. Tae-ho moved like water, flowing around Thal's desperate counterattacks. He was bleeding from a dozen cuts now, but his face showed no pain. His eyes showed nothing at all. The crowd had stopped cheering for Thal. They had stopped making any sound at all. They watched in horror as the giant Kalathi warrior was slowly, methodically destroyed by a creature half his size. Thal tried to retreat. Tae-ho followed. Thal tried to grab him. Tae-ho broke his fingers. Thal tried to kick him. Tae-ho shattered his knee. The great commander fell. He landed on his back, staring up at the lights of the arena. Blood leaked from cracks in his armor. His breathing was ragged and weak. Tae-ho stood over him. His suit was ruined. His body was covered in blood, both his own and Thal's. But his face was calm, empty, patient. He raised his rod like a spear, aiming at Thal's throat. The arena held its breath. Tae-ho spoke, and his voice carried to every corner of the arena, to every screen across the galaxy. "Humans," he said, "are not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the toughest." The rod pressed against Thal's throat. The Kalathi whimpered, "But we are the most stubborn." He looked up, directly at Vorn. The old arbiter felt those empty eyes on him like physical weight. "We survived ice ages," Tae-ho continued. "We survived plagues. We survived predators that would give your people nightmares. We survived each other. which was harder than all the rest combined. He pressed the rod harder. A thin line of blood appeared on Thal's scales. We did not conquer our world because we were the best. We conquered it because we refused to die. Because every time something tried to destroy us, we got back up. We adapted. We learned. We became something that could survive anything. The silence in the arena was absolute. Teho turned his gaze back to Vorn. "Yield," he said. "Announce to the galaxy that humanity has won. Announce that the Kelethii Empire was wrong about us. Do it now, or I will show everyone watching what humanity does to those who threaten our people." Vorn's claws gripped the railing of his seat. His pride screamed at him to refuse, to order his warriors to swarm the arena, to kill this human and every human on the station. But he looked into Teho's eyes and saw something there. Something that told him, beyond any doubt, that if he gave that order, he would die. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday, the human would come for him. And when that day came, nothing in the galaxy would save him. "I yield," Vorn said. His voice was barely a whisper, but the arena's systems carried it to every ear. Humanity has won. The Kelethii Empire acknowledges humanity's strength. The arena exploded into noise. Some cheered, some screamed, some simply stared in shock. Teho lowered his rod. He stepped back from Thal's broken body. Medical teams rushed onto the arena floor, surrounding the fallen commander. Teho walked toward the exit. His steps were steady despite his wounds. He retrieved his glasses from his pocket and put them back on. As he passed Captain Yuna and Lieutenant Dongsu, he paused. "We should leave soon," he said. His voice was warm again. Human again. "I suspect we have made some enemies today." Dongsu looked at him for a long moment. "You could have killed him." "Yes. Why did you not?" Teho smiled. It was a tired smile. A sad smile. "Because diplomats do not kill people, Dongsu. We negotiate. And today, I negotiated a future where the galaxy will never underestimate humanity again." He continued walking, leaving bloody footprints on the arena floor. Behind him, the galaxy would never be the same again. 3 days had passed since the duel. 3 days that had changed everything. Park Teho stood in the medical bay of the horizon's edge, while the ship's doctor finished treating his wounds. The cuts from Thal's claws had been deep, but they would heal. They always healed. That was one of the gifts, or perhaps curses, of his training. His body knew how to survive. "You should be dead," the doctor said, shaking her head. "That last cut came within a centimeter of your artery, but it did not reach it," Teho replied. "That is all that matters." The doctor sighed and closed her medical kit. She had learned not to argue with the diplomat. He was polite about everything, but he never changed his mind. Outside the medical bay, Captain Yuna was waiting. Her face had lost some of its tension over the past few days, but she still looked at Teho differently now. Like he was a weapon that might go off at any moment. "The assembly is requesting your presence," she said. "Apparently, half the species in the galaxy want to talk to you." "Of course they do," Teho said, putting on his new jacket. His old suit had been destroyed beyond repair. Everything is different now. They need to understand where they stand with humanity. "And where is that?" Teho smiled gently. "Wherever we decide it is." The Grand Assembly Hall was crowded with diplomats and observers, but the atmosphere was completely different from Teho's first visit. When he entered, conversation stopped. Species that had mocked humanity now watched the human diplomat with careful respect. Some even bowed their heads slightly as he passed. The highest platform, where the Kelethii had once sat in arrogance, was empty. Vorn had left Nexus Prime the morning after the duel, taking his humiliated delegation with him. Rumors said the Kelethii Empire was already beginning to crack. Subjected worlds that had feared the Kelethii for generations were suddenly wondering if their masters were as powerful as they had claimed. Park Teho walked to the center of the hall and waited. For the first time since arriving on the station, he did not bow. He did not lower his eyes. He simply stood, straight and calm, and looked around at the assembled species. "I am Park Teho," he said. "I speak for Earth and for humanity." The hall was silent. Everyone waited for what he would say next. 3 days ago, I was forced to defend myself against an unprovoked attack. The footage of that defense has been seen by billions across the galaxy. I understand that many of you now see humanity in a different light. He paused, letting his words settle. Good. You should. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Humanity is not what you thought we were. We are not prey. We are not weak. We did not survive on our world by hiding. We survived by fighting. We survived by refusing to give up. We survived by doing whatever was necessary to see another sunrise. Tejo began to walk slowly around the center platform, making eye contact with representative after representative. But I want to be clear about something. We did not come to the stars looking for enemies. We came looking for friends, partners, fellow travelers on the long journey of existence. He stopped walking and faced the empty Kelethi platform. What happened 3 days ago was not our choice. We were attacked. We defended ourselves. That is all. If the Kelethi had offered friendship instead of violence, we would have given friendship in return. We still would. He turned back to the crowd. Humanity remembers its enemies, but we also remember our friends, the species that treated us fairly when we arrived here, that respected us when others laughed. Those species will find that humanity never forgets a kindness. We are loyal to those who are loyal to us. Ambassador Lyris rose from her platform. Her silver face was thoughtful. What does humanity want from the assembly? She asked. The same thing every species wants, Tejo replied. A chance to trade, to learn, to grow, to find our place among the stars. He smiled slightly. We are still new here. We have much to learn from the elder species, but perhaps, after recent events, some of you will see that we have things to teach as well. One by one, delegates began to rise and offer their respects to humanity. Trade agreements that had been denied were suddenly approved. Alliance proposals that had been ignored were suddenly considered. By the end of the session, humanity had received more offers of partnership in 3 hours than they had in 6 months. After the session ended, Lyris approached Tejo in one of the quiet corridors. The galaxy sees you as monsters now, she said. Is that what you wanted? Tejo considered the question for a long moment. We prefer the word survivors, but we will accept monsters if it keeps our people safe. And you personally? What are you really? I told you before. I am a diplomat. He smiled. And for once, the smile reached his eyes. I just have a wider range of negotiating tools than most. Lyris studied him with her large, dark eyes. The Kelethi Empire is falling apart. News is spreading to their subjected worlds. Species that have been enslaved for generations are starting to rebel. Some say you have started a war. I have ended a war that was coming whether we started it or not. The Kelethi were going to attack humanity eventually. Everyone knows this. They saw us as weak, as easy prey. Now they know better. Tejo shrugged slightly. What happens to their empire is their own doing. They built it on fear and violence. Perhaps it is time for something better to take its place. He began walking toward the docking bay, and Lyris fell into step beside him. What will you do now? She asked. Go home. Report to my superiors. Take a long rest. He touched his bandaged shoulder absently. Heal. And after that, I will go wherever humanity needs me to go. There will be other stations, other assemblies, other species that think we are weak. He looked at her with those gentle, unreadable eyes. I will show them the truth, just as I showed the truth here. Captain Yuna was waiting at the horizon's edge with Lieutenant Dongsu. The ship was fueled and ready for departure. Everything is prepared, Yuna said. We can leave whenever you give the word. Then let us leave now, Tejo said. I have spent enough time on this station. Then, Tejo 70. As they walked up the boarding ramp, Dongsu fell into step beside Tejo. The galaxy will never look at us the same way again, Dongsu said quietly. Some will fear us. Some will hate us. Is that worth it? Tejo stopped at the top of the ramp and looked back at Nexus Prime one last time. Through the viewport, he could see ships from a dozen species coming and going, a galaxy full of wonders and dangers, opportunities and threats. Fear can become respect, he said. Hate can become understanding. Given enough time, anything can change. He turned to face Dongsu. What matters is that we survived. What matters is that no one will ever underestimate humanity again. What matters is that our people are safe. And the cost? The blood on your hands? Taeho was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was very soft. That is a cost I have been paying for 20 years, Dongsu. A few more drops make no difference. He walked onto the ship, and the boarding ramp closed behind him. The horizon's edge detached from Nexus Prime and turned toward the distant point that would take them home. Stars stretched into lines as the ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, across the galaxy, a new saying had already begun to spread. It passed from species to species, from world to world, from the highest palace to the lowest trading post. Fear the species that sends its killers dressed as diplomats. Fear the species that smiles while it destroys you. Fear the humans. And yet, mixed with the fear, there was something else. Something that surprised many who felt it. Respect. Because underneath all the violence and all the blood, the galaxy had seen something true about humanity. They had seen a species that would do anything to protect its own, a species that would not bow down, not give up, not surrender, no matter the odds. In a galaxy full of predators, humanity had proven that they were something more dangerous than any predator. They were survivors, and they were just getting started. Aboard the horizon's edge, Park Taeho sat in his quarters and stared out at the stars. His glasses were back on his nose. His face was gentle and tired. He looked exactly like what the galaxy had first thought he was, a harmless bureaucrat, a clerk in a suit. But now everyone knew the truth. And that was the point. Taeho smiled slightly and closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he would be just another diplomat again. He would smile and bow and negotiate in conference rooms far from any battlefield. But the galaxy would remember. They would always remember. And that was enough.